people we're going after and stuff like that would be discussed in the closed.
We'll move into the closed, and when we open the closed, we'll put that on the agenda somewhere. How's that sound? Because there was some stuff that was kind of sensitive that I think we should move to the closed. So that was that discussion.
Thank you.
Anybody, welcome everybody. And first and foremost, congratulations. And everybody on board here should be extremely proud of what happened last week, I guess it was, on the referendum 2 weeks ago, whenever. Very successful in my mind. And not so much only successful in the fact that, yes, we got some money, the loan authorization, but more so is that we're being backed up by the community. The community was loud and clear that they want this community center and they're prepared to support us to get it. So that's very inspiring. Okay, so the approval of the agenda, the late items. Steph, you want to just say what they are?
Yeah, we have one late item, which you would have received by email. It's the fundraising work plan. It's a supporting document for item 5.4.
Yeah, and there was also some action items. There was those.
Oh, and action items from the July meeting. There was just may not have been thoroughly completed, so we just take another look at them this meeting. Thank you, Gary.
Okay, and we've just, sorry, go ahead.
For 4.1.
Yeah, and we've discussed 5.4, and that's going to be okay. So anybody have any other issues on the agenda that they'd like to switch up? Now's your time. Okay, I'm going to move the approval of the agenda. I need a second out there somewhere. I can't see anything. Oh, there's Allison. Okay, all in favor, aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Who else we got here? Got to have some more. Dave?
Yep.
Dave, you're in. Okay. Liam? Okay. Jamie? Perfect. Okay. That is approved. Thank you. And the adoption of the minutes. There is the minutes from the August 24th meeting. And does everybody have a chance to go through those and critique them as you would? Anybody have anything that's glaring omission or something that's wrong in there? Okay, move the adoption of the minutes. I will.
I'll
Second. Thanks, David. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And okay, so now public comments. We have none, I assume, Steph.
Nope,
And
nobody.
so the action items, now we have the action items on page 8 here, and there is a discussion about the late edition action items from July the 9th. So maybe we should do those first if everybody's got a copy of those. And I guess it's Sam, you're involved with some of that.
Sam, do you want to read them out or?
Sure. I mean, I think we all have the materials. There's 7 items.
Yes.
Number 1 was we're the last meeting where we're looking towards developing an updated schedule. We'll talk about that in the update. There hasn't been a schedule released if anyone thought they didn't get something. So if there wasn't one released, don't be worried. Number 2 was the management team to reconcile discrepancies between the various versions of the budget. I believe this occurred before we went out to referendum. It seems to be a small typo there in that action item in terms of the dollar figure, but seems to me an extra 1 perhaps. Item 3, management team bring BIM BIAC MOU to the next steering committee meeting for recommendation to council. And I believe this occurred. I think some work happened over email. And the management team, number 4, is to identify a staff member to be responsible for the business plan. Liam, did we put a name there, or did you put your hand up? Yeah.
I don't know if I put my hand up, but I think it's more so it got put up for me. But yeah,
it happened.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And it's public. Number 5, Mr. Edwards is called the inspector, and that obviously happened. And number 6, Councillor Morris, locate and share fundraising coordinator position terms of reference. Did that occur, Jackie, Allison?
Most of these at the last, are you going through the July 9th ones?
Yeah,
Because we discussed all those at the August meeting.
You asked me to put them on.
No, I asked you if somebody had done step 2.
I said I
the
don't know.
management. team one.
Yeah, and so,
Step,
so Steph sent us out the whole list, but on her action item, she's got point 1 and 2, which are the 2 that got carried forward.
so
Okay,
going to the, I mean, so if we're done with July 9th and the August 24th action items, there's
We're
3
not done with
items.
July 9th. I had a question. The reason I asked Jeff what had happened, and number 2, I don't
There's a-
remember getting the difference between what was fundraised of 1291415 and what was on the dashboard that Raj gave us of 11,142.9. So did Raj send that out?
I did not. I overlooked that was an action item. I will do that subsequent to this meeting. My apologies.
So there was a discrepancy between what was posted on the project website and what was on the
Yeah.
dashboard.
On the
Yeah.
dashboard, okay.
We
I
just
put the
wanted
dashboard
clarity.
together really quickly, but I'll have a look at those 2 numbers and reconcile them.
that first number, you'll have a hard time
What
reconciling.
number is that supposed
Yeah,
to
I know.
be?
We're talking about $10,000 discrepancy here, I think.
No.
I don't know, it looks like, I don't
No.
know. It's a funny number.
I'll find it. Sorry. I'll find
The next one, I think it's 1291 and 1142, but I'm not sure.
Oh, sorry, it's 148. Okay, yeah, I'll have to look at that, Allison. Sorry, I didn't.
Yeah.
And so
Okay, I think we got this all organized again. So those are the 2 issues of the July 9th. Let's go on to the August 24th.
yeah, and so there was some action items, A and B for Councillor
Yeah.
Morris and Jacqueline Massey,
We did that.
and
Okay.
both items done. Raj was to email the fundraising costs to date to the CCSSC and FAC members. I don't know, Raj, if that occurred.
I did not email them. I will do that there. We've incurred $109,000 to date. I just looked at that earlier today.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Raj. And Liam, with respect to emailing fundraising contract to the group at the CCSSC. Did that contract, I believe,
I think, I believe it was sent around.
I think so. I think you did
I
it
think, oh, yeah.
very promptly.
Is there
Oh, and
anything-
I've lost.
I can resend it if,
Well, I'll look for it. I keep getting these book emails. So things get lost in those
book emails.
from a certain person.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of emails floating around. Okay, so that's.
if there's no more, yeah, if there's no more action items or something missed, I think that's it, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much, Sam. And we're going to move on to business arising from the minutes. And the 5.1 is a project update. Next steps. Back to you, Sam. Thank you.
Well, we have been meeting as a core group with the architectural team and the design team, trying to get their work plan solidified in terms of moving the project forward closer towards a procurement, construction procurement timeline. And that work has uncovered and entails looking at some of the design changes to the project associated with grant requirements. That's one aspect, and that primarily focuses around accessibility of the facility, and I would what we would refer to as current best practice of the design associated with accessibility. And this is something that the grant mandates, and something that is good practice for any public sector, publicly accessed building. And so there's a handful of changes associated with the design which went and was finalized for building permit in 2018,
Oh, yeah.
and codes and standards around accessibility have slightly changed and adjusted. And so there's a few pinch points in the building that we've asked the team to look at. That's one item, as well as look at the impact and do some due diligence around the impact of COVID-19 in terms of the built environment and space where people will be working. And those elements together, I think, you know, office redesign, accessibility redesign, COVID-19, it's just a series of due diligence checks. And so prior to moving towards a tender date, we've asked the design team to take a look at some of these items and come back to us with a revised work plan, getting us this due diligence and change built into our design prior to tender, so we're not doing changes during construction. And then we can get a firm fixed price at tender with all this work completed. And so from a project management process, the first step is getting some cost estimates to do this additional design service work and change. And then once we have that, we can negotiate and move forward with the change of design. All of this is aiming to stay on target with a winter tender timing and spring start to construction. So
Awesome.
I could get into more details in terms of the dates, but we really need to work with the design team, and they're not ready to present an integrated design management schedule yet because there's many disciplines still working on unveiling the scope of these changes, which Craig and Drew are very much aware of now as of, was that Monday or Tuesday this week? Monday this week.
Okay.
So it's slightly moving, but we should have information and a revised work plan from the design team in the coming week or two.
Okay, that'd be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks, Sam. I just have one question, and you mentioned the COVID-19. I mean, we're not going to make any structural changes in the building because of COVID-19, are we?
No.
No.
Structural.
Not permanent. Not permanent.
Structural by like the actual physical structure. I don't think our structure needs to change because of COVID-19.
Okay.
That said, our structure has some slight tweaks to it because of accessibility.
No, that's fine. That's fine. It's just I heard this again the other day about, well, have we taken COVID-19 into account for a certain build or something like that? And I'm going, well, you know, we plan this that this is going to pass at some point in time. I don't know if we can start designing stuff around COVID-19. Anyway,
well, it's not specific to COVID, but just for the team's awareness and information, because they've all most people here were part of the design process, so it's important to be aware of that. Things like air quality due to wildfires and smoke, the same issues of air quality in an environment where there's a pandemic and you want people working from a collaborative space that has a workplace culture of working together. So those changes because of COVID are the same sort of resilience design parameters that you would need for a lot of scenarios that may come up in the future, not just COVID.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so anybody have any questions for Sam here?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Allison.
Sam, you said winter tender timing? So
Yes.
winter starts on December 21st and goes to March 21st, if I'm understanding the calendar correctly. So when in those 3 months are you planning on doing a tender? By the end of March or by
January?
December?
January, that's what I
Right now our target's January.
Yeah.
We'll do an industry standard tender allotment time somewhere between 4 and 5 weeks. Then there'll be an evaluation process, bring that evaluation process back to the steering committee and then to council for acceptance before we move on to the next gate, which would be awarding the contract to a general contractor
So you're hoping they might be able to award
by
the
spring.
contract by the end of March?
Yeah,
Yeah. March sometime would be
March
nice.
sometime. I mean, there may be, I mean, if
We
all
might
goes
end
well,
up,
we
might
should
end
be
up
able
in
to hit.
negotiations, so that could.
If all goes well, Allison, it could be March, but considering the various scenarios that could result at the end of tender close, I think we have to keep some of those dates flexible, depending on which scenario plays out with the tender release and close, and the results of the bid.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
And I guess the other thing I'm just thinking of is from the design of the office spaces. You know, I'm thinking, I don't know how many times we rejigged the interior of our office. And so how set in stone we want to be for a tender with a set of plans that a year and a half from now, when we start finalizing the offices, could be quite fluid.
Yeah,
What do you write at, Sam?
that's a good comment, and I think actually something we brought up to the team, Liam brought up to the team this week, and we're looking at as part of this work to get us from where we are now, which is about 90% complete done contract documents to 100, to make sure that we're building in that long life loose fit. That's my new motto these days, and into that office environment, and with whatever flexibility we may need in terms of changes to the space or the environment in the future.
Yeah, I'm thinking what Kenzie and Company was, they were interviewing office plans for the future, and Kenzie and Company were saying they're gonna have to start all over again with something that's brand new. And I had the same sort of article in my CPA magazine that came the other day.
Yeah, office environment, there's a lot of commentary on it these days from all sorts of sources, from workspace planners, architects, interior designers, mechanical engineers, realtors. Hot topic because of COVID and real estate changes that will be coming.
Yeah. I'd say at some point in time, you just have to go with something though, and carry on. I mean, there's no question about that. Okay, so we're going to move on to 5.2, which is committee membership, and that's over to Liam.
Yeah, so looking at the terms of reference for the committee membership, we have the right membership that's here today. We know that we lost Jacqueline Massey when Jacqueline resigned from her job, and we gained Jami Scheffer. So a bit of a loss and a bit of a gain. But in that change, what we did lose from the committee was a lot of corporate knowledge and a depth of history to the project that we don't have with Jami. And no offense, Jami, but you and I both being new to our organizations, we just don't bring to the team what our predecessors had brought. So the idea was brought forward, well, can we add an additional member to the committee representing the Hearth, and to help support Jami and their contributions to the project. And in order to do that, we would need to amend the terms of reference to allow for that, and wanted to bring it forward to the committee to get committee discussion on it. And if we all agree, we could make a motion to recommend to council to amend the terms of reference.
All right. I personally think that we want the best team going forward here. And again, no offense, Jami, but there is a wealth of information there that's going to be hard to get up to speed on. So I would highly recommend that we bring it, somebody in from the Arts Council. Jackie, probably. Is that the idea?
I
guess-
would suggest, Gary, it's a member of the board of the Arts Council, so we actually have a board member, just like we have council members on the committee. So we have a direct relationship there.
Is there anybody on the board that has got the
Some of those board members have been around for, during the whole process.
Okay, well,
We have discussed it on the board level, and I do have some recommendations, and I'm just reaching out to those board members right now to see if they are willing to join. It won't be Jackie, because Jackie's not part of the board,
no,
and Jackie's busy doing her thing.
yes.
And Jackie's been really super helpful to me just to get me up to speed on things. And no offense taken, maybe I'll bring a new
Okay.
fresh outlook on things.
That's right. New faces are good for that.
Yeah, okay, well,
But
let's,
yeah, I'll let you know when I have a better idea of which board member would join. If I just have a question though, does it have to be a board member, or can it be someone who's actively engaged in the arts and culture scene on Bowen Island? If we can't find an appropriate board member, I hear you, Allison, that you think that it should be a board member, but as you say, Gary, we want a really, or Liam, we want a really strong team.
yeah,
But this is an ongoing arrangement going till we get the building built.
Right.
correct.
And we're looking at a memorandum next where we're talking about relationships with the Arts Council. So I think it needs to, personally, I think it needs to be a member of the board.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we have the best team going forward. That's all.
I mean, the
Yeah.
design, yeah.
What's the general feeling out here? I think the most important thing is that it's somebody that's got a fairly good knowledge of what's been going on here with the community center operation for the last 6 years or whatever it's been. So that would be and whether it's a director or a member of the Arts Council, as long as they had a good working understanding of what's going on, I think that's the important part here. What's everybody else think?
Gary, I agree with you. Basically, we're looking for the, I get Allison's point. The board sounds logical, but I have no idea who the board members are. And I think the point that you raised is the most important one. It's that it's someone who has had long involvement and understands the issue really well.
Sam had his hand up.
Sam, go ahead.
I don't really have much to add in terms of the individual. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the project management work of the steering committee and the duration of that. And Liam, I think actually you were going to mention that as well. And maybe that's also important to bring up simultaneously about the duration and the work ahead of the committee. So we know that, there still is procurement. I mean, if we can get over that hump of procurement and some solid project budget, the budgeting from the general contractor community that fits into our project budget, then it's a smooth sailing. But there potentially is, a lot of work ahead in terms of value engineering or change management and the whole process of operationalization of this facility and the joint management committee. So that just wanted to kind of touch on those to make sure that they were all on top of mind when, yes, there is a lot of work to be done and a strong team member that can focus on some of these areas will be very valuable to the project.
Yeah, well said. And does anybody have a problem with another member from BIAC coming in to help Jami out as a team member? Okay, that's good. Why can we let Jami select that person from the Arts Council?
I think, Gary, what I would suggest we do, since it's a council committee, you amend the wording of clause 3.1 to say the committee shall consist of one member nominated by the Arts Council board, by the board of the Hearth.
Well, we're saying it might be outside the board.
Well, you're all, it
nominated,
sounds like
no-
I'm being outvoted on it, just being a board member. So if they nominate, they could nominate themselves, or they could choose
Yeah.
somebody to represent, to bring their interest forward to
Yeah.
the.
So the
Project.
board would nominate the
Yeah.
representative.
Oh, you're saying nominated from the board?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's a
okay.
good idea.
No,
Or-
the board would make the nomination. Logically, they would nominate one of their own, but if none of them are willing to do it,
Yeah.
then you and David were suggesting it should just be somebody with a arts knowledge and background.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea, Allison, that
Yeah.
the board will support that person.
Yeah, so you would say the Bowen Island Arts Council Executive Director and one member nominated by
The Hearth Board.
Hearth Board.
Okay, is everybody in favor of that?
Sure.
Awesome.
So that has to go to council, I guess.
Yeah, so that's a recommendation to council, and I can prepare that.
The reference be amended to add to clause 3.1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can tidy that up, Steph.
Yeah,
Now,
Uh,
to Sam's point, I should have raised this at the beginning that because we're going to make a recommendation to amend the terms of reference for the membership, there are two other aspects of the terms of reference I wonder if need amending.
Okay, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay. We can have 3 different resolutions.
So the one is the duration that Sam mentioned. The terms of reference, the next clause, 3.3.2, speaks that the term of the office for committee members shall be the duration of the project up to the commencement of vertical construction. I think this
So
committee,
that's the shovel in the ground. Yeah.
yeah, that's when they start actually pouring foundation. So I think that this committee offers a lot of value to the project, and it would be valuable to keep the committee in place until the project is actually commissioned and complete.
So you want to delete commencement of vertical construction and amend it to say
Commissioning.
commissioning of the building.
Yeah, final commissioning.
Good idea.
You may want it even like 6 months after commissioning or 3 months after commissioning. I've seen other steering committees stay in place for that transition to operations, depending on the establishment and strength of the joint operating committee and how much overlap and synergy there are between those two working committees.
Yeah.
I think the commissioning is probably fine because I think, we want to have that JMC up and functioning at least a year in advance of commissioning.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Then we have to start filling space requirements 6 months in advance.
Yeah.
Well, what about
So,
compromise then? Sam's not looking happy with us. The commissioning's the date we move into the building, right? Is that?
No, not
Commissioning
necessarily.
is not necessarily the date you're moving into the building. It's the date by which the systems are functioning and the building functions as it was intended to operate.
could be a little later than that.
So you could,
Well, commissioning, I
be
guess,
earlier.
commissioning could be defined in multiple ways. I mean, my understanding is for commissioning is that when the facility is fully operational. And so,
well, so we have a slightly two opinions on commissioning, and maybe we.
Yeah.
So
we need to define it.
So
Yeah.
yeah, good discussion topic, and that I like your definition for the committee, because when I think of commissioning, I think about commissioning the systems and getting it ready to move in, not when the furniture is even in the building.
Oh, okay.
That's when the building is commissioned.
That
And
to
that-
me would be substantial completion.
And so what we're really
Ah,
talking about is when the building
don't like
becomes
that.
operational.
Yeah, in my definition, substantial completion is when the asset is complete to its intended purpose and can function for its intended purpose. Commissioning is
And-
when it's fully operational and is meeting its intended purpose.
Well, I
And
guess we're not gonna
we-
be able to use that because there seems to be a
This
definition
is
issue.
it is a definition issue on every project, and
Yes.
Liam is right, and so is the Lean Act, and the Lean Act defines substantial completion slightly differently, and so you
We
will
don't
hear
have
this.
Why don't we just come up with another term that bypasses
Oh,
those? Like,
There
We
is
just
no
use
definition.
Occupancy then, what, until the building is occupied?
Don't use the word occupancy
Okay.
either, please. I think what we're talking about and where Liam is at is where the building is operational for its intended purpose.
which is a little bit, it's a little bit gray, so that would probably, it might have some flexibility.
But operational for its intended purpose doesn't necessarily mean anybody's moved in and using it.
Operational means it's operating in my mind.
Yeah, full capacity, yeah.
Yes, yeah,
All right.
Okay, let's, should we try that one on for size then?
sure.
Can you say that again? I was just
We're gonna, 3.3,
Yeah.
3.2, we're gonna
replace
delete.
commencement of vertical construction with operate.
replace that.
No, to take that commencement of vertical construction rate out.
Replace commencement of
Yeah.
vertical construction with
Yeah. Liam,
building is operational.
Yeah, once the facility is fully operational.
up to the date the facility is fully operational.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, let's leave that for some wordsmithing and.
Okay, thank you.
Liam, do you have anything else on
We
that?
have to vote on
We're
that,
gonna
Gary, we recommend to council and so forth.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I'll move that.
I'll second it.
Even though we don't have it, okay. And all in favor? Aye. Any opposed is the bigger question. I don't see anybody.
No.
No, we're good. Okay, thank you. We'll call that unanimous. All right.
I was just gonna point out before we leave the topic of the of the terms of reference, I was just looking at 5.1, since this is going
Yeah.
to council. I don't think those numbers are, definitely those numbers are not valid. Well, I don't know the project manager budget, but definitely the design permits, procurement, referendum to fundraising number is far greater, and our spending is far greater than $76,000.
Do we want to delete everything after the first sentence in 5.1?
That's what I would recommend.
Okay, Raj and I are going to move and second that we delete everything after the first sentence in 5.1.
Because most of this is covered by the gates and
Okay.
council resolutions that have been made.
Yeah. Okay. It's a
Okay,
good
does
one.
anybody have an issue with that? I'll ask the question. All in favor? Aye.
Agreed.
Thank you, Raj and
Thanks.
Allison. Okay.
And there is a fourth item. So-
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
And this is a question I'm not sure that we need to amend, but it's right up the top, number 1 under purpose. And it's the last 2 words. So to provide input and oversight pertaining to the Bowen Island Community Center project planning, design, construction, and commission to operations processes.
What do you like?
Well, I'm just wondering what the operations processes, is that part of the JMC
Right.
purpose, or is that?
That's the commission, that's moving in the building's operational that we.
I think that's an operational level.
I think the gap there, Liam, was that the JMC we needed some operating advice before we had a JMC. And so I really like your suggestion of starting the JMC in advance as much as possible, because there's a lot of operating planning needed for things like FF&E procurement and move planning, etc. So
And that's not.
Well, maybe we leave it here until we actually get the JMC up and running.
Operational.
And that would be something I think I would see as powerful, because and the sooner we get the JMC operating for some of its tasks, the better.
Right. Okay. All right. That's all I had on that.
Okay, thank you, Liam. Any other discussions there on that 5.3? Oh, no, sorry, that was a 5.2. So 5.3. Okay, so the Bowen Island Municipality and the Bowen Island Arts Council Memorandum of Understanding. And update over to you, Jami Scheffer. If you want to talk to that or not.
Sure, and now I'm going to pass it over to Jacqueline Massey.
All right.
Right, caught the baton. Okay, thank you. Yes, so here we are reviewing the MOU, and as per the action items from the notes from the previous meeting on the 24th, Allison and myself did some more work on the MOU. It was then circulated to, I believe, all members of the committee as well as to the board of the Hearth. And at the subsequent board meeting of the Hearth, there were some concerns about the changes that had been proposed. So you have two documents in regards to this. The first one just highlights the changes. So we tried to keep them as clean as possible so they'd be as clear and easy enough to read. So the first one just highlights those new changes that were made to the report versus the earlier report that the Hearth board would have reviewed and approved. The second document is a document that was worked on by members of the directors of the Hearth as well as myself and and Jami. I believe you were working on that as well, and which reflect the Hearth's concerns or points that they wanted to make. So I'm not sure in terms of process how you want to go through this, but I do want to start by stating that members of the Hearth, the board of directors, are willing to meet with either the entire committee or members of the committee if feel that there's a need to do an additional workshop, as was done in November of last year, or we could proceed to present on behalf of what the board is thinking and also just put some context and framework in terms of where these changes are coming from or their responses to some of the things that were proposed. So I'm just going to ask you how you'd like to proceed at this point.
So you and Allison put a revised MOU together and then it went back to the board. Is this what we're saying?
So
Okay.
the revised MOU, I sent around on September 2nd and asked for comment.
Yeah. So the highlighted one.
You were happy with it. David was happy with it. Liam was happy with it. I was happy with it. I noticed one slight change, which had in our back and forth with Jackie and Shauna and I, the day we met, I realized we had ended up with 2 members of BICR and 1 member of the public, which was not what I think we had ended up in agreeing on the day of the meeting. So I realized there was an oops there, and it should have been 1 member appointed by BICR and 2 members of the public. And I did discuss that with both David and Liam and Gary, and they were happy with that. So from our perspective, we were happy with it. So I guess the biggest thing that changed in here for me is we had 2 very distinct sections. One was guiding principles and one was actual sort of how the programming is going to take place. The heading called programming and scheduling, and everything is now under guiding principles. Right. And so that I think needs some discussion, because at our last meeting, I thought we agreed on having some guiding principles that would guide how the scheduling was done. Right. So having it all under the heading of guiding principles doesn't work.
Right, so that was a change that was introduced since the board had seen it, and there was a strong reaction, I'd say, of everything that was in that. The strongest reaction and concern was that all of those items that were identified were and had been intended as guiding principles. So to differentiate between them did not reflect the spirit of the earlier agreement or earlier proposed agreement. So that was why they have asked that be reinstated as it was, and because they felt that it's much stronger with them all standing as guiding principles. So that is the rationale.
Because I think we all had a concern about what that, the first clause that was in the draft we looked at the last meeting. I can find that one. Coffee stain somewhere in here. Just what it meant and how the programming was going to be done. And that's an action, and we wanted guiding principles to lead that action. So I think maybe we need to have another meeting with the board and hash some of this out.
I think we can talk about this forever here, but I think the more progressive way to do it would be to get the board, because there's extensive changes in here. There's no question. And we have to see what the thinking is behind it. I don't think it's fair to the board for us to make changes here without their actual.
We're just going to bounce back and forth and playing ping pong. So I think.
Well, exactly, yeah. I don't think it's very productive to try to rearrange this now. How does everybody else feel about that?
Yeah, I think it's probably worthwhile, Gary. I agree that I mean, some of the changes I think we can all easily live with. Some of them we just need to better understand the nature of them.
Where they're coming from, yeah.
Yeah, and then I think it would be easy for us all to get to agreement together, and then this back and forth.
Yeah, I think it would certainly be a lot easier. I thought there was just the two issues on the membership, and then there was another issue, but this is quite extensive. And I think it would be better if we did a sort of in person or a Zoom or something to try to resolve this, because I think we're all saying the same thing, and I just think we're saying it in different ways maybe, and that's the issue. So how does everybody feel about that? Do you think that's the way we should go forward? David, go ahead.
No, I agree with what you're saying, Gary and Allison. Let's work together to fix this rather than go back and forth.
Yeah, I think if we sit down, we can probably fix this in an hour. Otherwise, it's going to take about 20 hours of back and forth. So I would highly recommend that we get some members of the board and some members, a team from the municipality to try to surf the way through this thing. Can we leave it there? Do you want to make a recommendation to that?
I was just going to suggest, and I think, as I said, the board would be very open to that. And the last time the workshop was held and the group got together, I think that the outcomes, yes, seem to be, many issues could be resolved that way. I'm wondering, in terms of process, as far as how would you like to go ahead with that? Is there a need for someone to facilitate that meeting? And if so, who might that be?
I don't know if we need a facilitator. I think it's just a matter of going through the points that they've raised here and seeing if they're acceptable to BIM, and if not, how can we come to a common ground on them? That's basically what it is. I really don't think it's serious enough to get somebody in there to, that's my thinking on it.
I'd agree with Gary. I mean, if the board feels like we need a professional facilitator, then I think we've got bigger issues.
Yeah, agreed 100%. If let's try to keep this pretty casual and just see if we can't find a way through it. If we can't find a way through it, then there's going to be that's another issue we'll have to deal with at the time.
And I was actually just suggesting somebody to lead the process rather than facilitate issues. But at any rate, that's fine. So then perhaps you want to, I don't know if you need a motion, but just to invite members of the board to join members of the committee for a discussion regarding the MOU so that you can resolve.
I would suggest we use the word joint workshop on the MOU.
Okay, that sounds good. I like that.
I sort of see where Jackie's coming from with someone who's maybe unbiased that can lead it to keep things flowing. That's, I can see, both sides here because on the steering committee, but I'm also with the Hearth board. And, there's a history of the MOU that's now looking quite different than what it started off being. So I don't know, I just kind of feel like you need somebody a little bit unbiased to lead it. not necessarily a facilitator, and I don't know
Well-
who that is.
Maybe that's you and me, Jamie.
Okay. Can we we can arm
Well-
wrestle?
Well, like you and I are relatively new. You know, I think we're all, the board and ourselves here, are in agreement that the primary goal and objective of the MOU is to maintain and ideally enhance the working relationship between the two organizations to the betterment of the community. And so I think with that as the guiding principle for the entire agreement, I think we can, we can get there. And I think you and I, Jamie, being relatively new, well, we're not as personally entrenched in the details. And so, I'll work to ensure that the BIM team stays focused, and you can work toward
Problem solving, moving forward.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
I mean, how does that sound to folks? Like,
I don't think, I think that sounds great. Like if, I don't think this has to be, the other thing that I think is that the Hearth board should understand, and so should BIM, that this doesn't have to be a perfect document. I see the JMC as a huge driver in this relationship. And I think that the JMC should be tasked with taking on issues that arise from day to day, which is going to be what they do. So I don't, and I think that's the message that we've got to get across here, is that, this isn't set in stone, and, nobody's going to the guillotine here or anything. This is just a working relationship that will be overseen by the JMC.
Yeah.
So
And
that's my feeling on it.
And there's good representation on the JMC. So you're right, Gary, that it will work. Yeah, it will work. And there's going to have to be a little give and take on both sides. We're not going to get a document that's a hard legal document that we have to go to court on every time something goes wrong. It's just it's just kind of a mutual understanding. And like I said, the GMC, I think, does supersede to a certain extent. They get to sort of manipulate this MOU, sort of.
So
Anyway, that's the way I feel about it.
Yeah.
Just to remind everybody, we do have a signed memorandum of understanding for the development, management, and operation of the community center. So I've never understood why it isn't okay the way it is. But anyhow.
Well, but I guess that was only for the run up to it, wasn't it?
Well, so
Management and operation.
I think because one party feels that there's a need to make changes and end it, then that's reason enough.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. But I guess what I'm saying is, as part of this discussion, I would like to understand what it is they didn't like about the first one that they want to make
Which
changes.
is why we'll have a session together, Allison.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's move forward.
Can I find out a list of names and then vote on this?
Well, it would be this committee and the board of the Hearth.
Yeah.
Oh, the entire committee?
Yeah.
That's what we did the last time.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've got that the Community Center Select Steering Committee resolved to invite the Hearth members to a joint workshop to
Hearth board members.
craft the BIM BIAC Memorandum of Understanding, to be led by BIM CAO and BIAC Executive Director. I will edit.
You didn't say Hearth board members, did you?
The Hearth board members.
To resolve the MOU, points of contention in the MOU.
Points of concern.
Points of concern would be better. Yeah. Discussion, yes. Thank you.
Concern. Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, sure.
Sounds
Move
good.
it.
Did
Move
you
it.
call it a workshop?
Pardon?
Yeah, did call it
A
a
workshop?
Yeah.
You cut out several times, that's why.
Okay, I'll move that.
I'll
Second.
All right,
Okay,
go ahead.
thanks, Liam. And all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Jackie?
Wonderful.
And a quote at the end, long life, loose fit. Sam
Yes,
Collins.
I like it.
I think that's our new quote of the year.
I like that. I like that. Okay, so that'll be very productive. I think it's going to be a lot easier than it appears. And so we'll move on to 5.4, which is fundraising update. Jacqueline Massey, fundraising coordinator.
Great, thanks, Gary.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm going to run through a bit of my report, and if there's a part where we feel that there's confidential information that needs to be discussed in a closed meeting, either I'll ask that at that point, or if somebody could maybe bring that up.
Okay, we'll yell at you.
Don't yell at me, please.
Okay.
So of course I did do a report your last meeting on the 24th, but this is a progress report since that time. And in terms of the activities that were based on the work plan that I believe you'll have a copy of. And I will refer to it. It has been updated since you've seen it last. But just to set you up for that, what I've been doing since we met and leading up to the referendum is just key activities, including, of course, the liaison with projects management and communication teams. Been reviewing, I worked a little bit on the business plan and the MOU, reviewing and verification of accuracy on our database, which is, of course, we've been using Keela, and also donor files. Acknowledgement of any of the new pledges we've received, and we received about $500 new pledges since in September. We did distribute an e-blast to all of our pledgers, and there were some other communications with pledgers just before the referendum, reminding them to please vote. Sorry about that. And let's see, then continuing engagement with some potential new major donors. These are people we've been talking to for a while, and who've been kind of sitting on the fence and waiting to see how the referendum outcome would be. So still having that communication. Reviewing the project communication strategy. So just working with the project communications team to ensure that we're aligning messaging and any kind of communications that's going out. And just today, earlier, I met with Raj and Ify to ensure that our fundraising reports and financial information is up to date, and we're still working on that. I'm going to be continuing to do that. So looking for, and you can again reference the work plan, that a lot of these things are identified in the work plan, and including a timeline, and some of them are, as you will see, are ongoing. In terms of next steps, so I've kind of identified a number of things that need to happen over the next short to medium term. And of course, first and foremost, as we had indicated to our pledgers, that we would be calling in pledges upon a positive referendum result. And now that that has happened, I'd like to go ahead and begin that collection, just verification of donor recognition preferences, and we'll be issuing, of course, tax receipts and any other related administration. So that's going to be happening over the next 3 to 4, 6 weeks. Development of our donor recognition signage installation and or a public art project. That's been on the list for a while. We haven't really done anything around that, but there needs to be quite a bit of work around the concept, design, budget, taking a look at all of that. 2 other items. A review and update of the project budget, and really taking a look at those fundraising goals that we've identified. And then the 4th thing is the development and implementation of a strategy to meet any additional fundraising needs that might arise. And if you again go to the work plan, if you look at those items are included, as I mentioned, on the work plan. And right now the date or the timeline just says post-referendum. So yeah. I am really actually going to be looking for some guidance from the committee at this time in terms of how to move forward on those items 3 and 4. And so this is where I have some information that's included in the report. And some of it is just regarding the financial picture of where we're at. And so I'm happy to proceed at this point in this meeting, or if there's anyone who feels that this information should not be shared in an open meeting, please let me know. I'll just hesitate now. If you can, I think you all have copies of that, just going forward.
And this is just the fundraising campaign work plan, right? Is that where we have copies of? Or is that the stuff so the Steph was going to send out?
The report came a little bit later. It fell off.
It came at 3:13.
Right. So it's a 3-page report. And so I've kind of gone over the first part of it with you. And now we're just into page 2. And
I think we should probably
page 3 move to closed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's do that. I don't have a page 3, but I guess it's somewhere here.
Just check your email at 4:03 or something.
Check your emails, Gary. Steph sent it out.
Yeah, 4:04 on mine.
404, okay.
Happy to share my screen as well to go through that. I'll finish this part of the report by saying that, I just submit this update to you in terms of the activities and the progress report for the fundraising coordination.
Maybe before moving to close with some of those things, I do want to acknowledge the piece about integrating the public art and donor recognition into the project. That is something that we're going to have to set up a separate discussion for and I think we talked about it with the design team already, but that is a piece of work, whether it's going to require infrastructure and options around infrastructure will potentially change the tender documents, or it could be a separate piece done later. So that still is yet to be defined. But often these things do impact the construction.
Right, and I think focus probably should be done sooner rather than later.
Yep.
Near the end of the construction.
But I wouldn't want to include it in the tender documents. I mean, everything I've ever seen, they're freestanding pieces that hang on walls or so we don't need the contractor involved in that document or that piece of artwork that becomes the donor recognition wall.
I've seen it multiple ways, Allison, and the infrastructure to support whatever that is, I think, is the most critical piece, whether that's structural components, water, air, power, IT, whatever that donor recognition concept may be. There's so many options. We just need to make sure that the design coordination for the infrastructure that supports that donor recognition is in place in the construction documents that go to tender or to market.
Good point. Steph, can you send that through to my my Shaw address?
It's not a water fountain yet, right?
No, water fountain would be really nice.
Not for donor names.
Yeah.
My last project, project, they said, okay, the donor recognition is going to be a water fountain. We were 2 weeks before occupancy. Well,
no!
It's the wrong time to say you're doing a water fountain for donor recognition, and that the fundraising director had already committed the water fountain. So, because they had got a $1 million donation. So.
Well, that's a lovely idea. I love the idea.
But the $1 million donation didn't cover the cost of the water fountain. So.
No.
Oh, great.
No.
Not much good for anything, is it?
I mean, I'm sharing a bit of a joke and a laugh, but it is critically important, and we should recognize.
Let's not do a water fountain.
Yeah.
I was thinking of something along the lines of the one that's in the market hall in Gibson's. The one that Bill Humphreys was very involved in.
Mm-hmm.
So
where the aquarium stuff, the science, I'll call it the aquarium center is. Yeah.
What about a water park recognition?
No, that's Parks and Rec.
This is where we're going to need to set some boundaries on donor recognition.
Well, that's why I said it has to be
Sam might wear his,
on a blank wall.
Right. You're going to get involved with these creative people, these ideas will go on and get more ridiculous as we get further along.
Thanks, Steph. Yeah. Also landscaping, you could do stepping stones with boulders. There's
So,
yeah.
so we,
endless
I mean, I think we know
ideas.
that we have an action to do this. I don't know if there's anything for the steering committee. I guess what we would need to do is bring that recommendation back to the steering committee once complete by
Yes, absolutely.
the design team and the fundraising team.
Yeah. Steph, did you send that through to me? That page 3?
2 and 3, I think, Gary.
I didn't get them.
Well, I've got page 1 and page 2 and page 3. It's one document.
It's
Yes.
Oh, it is?
Yep.
Yeah, it's one document
It's-
labeled dated September 22nd, and it's a narrative format. It's not a chart.
So it's the name of the file is 22 September fundraising report to CCSSC.
The PDF.
Yeah, no, I've
format.
got that one.
That's
Open
what we're
that one,
talking-
and then you will see on page 2 and 3 some specifics around community contribution amounts and dollar figures, amenity contributions, etc. That looks like it should be closed meeting material.
Why am I only getting September 2020 campaign work plan and the CCSS action items doc? Those are the only 2 I'm getting.
Well, that
Oh,
was
wait.
the first email. The second.
There's a-
email.
Oh, okay, I got it now. Thanks, Steph.
Okay.
Sorry, that was my bad.
That amenity contribution.
I just want to clarify, there's talk of so many documents. I'm just want to make sure I've got the right document here. So the one I'm now looking at, it starts with leading up to the referendum, fundraising activities have been directed by the continuing implementation. It's dated September 22. Is that the right one? Progress report and next steps?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, that should definitely go to the closed.
Yeah.
Talking a whole bunch of numbers in there. So that we'll talk about in the closed meeting. That's great. Thanks, Steph. Sorry for that. Okay, so
Is there an action then about any of this donor recognition, or just it's in the
No,
minutes?
it's in the work plan.
I think it's in the work plan.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to go on to new business, and well, I got 6.1, which is the other business. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to bring up at this point in time before we move on to the closed? I'm not hearing too much out there, so
Just timeline on the referendum results. There's a 30-day quashing period, so
30
we're halfway
days.
there, right?
Yeah. Are we already halfway there? Oh my goodness.
Well, I don't know. When did we have the
Yeah.
referendum on the 12th of
The
September?
12th.
10 days,
1/3 of the way there.
1/3.
yeah, I don't see an issue there at all, but it's
Well, we
just
never,
timeline.
as the saying goes, it's never over till the fat lady sings.
Okay, well, we'll wait for that then. Okay, so we're going to move on to a closed meeting, and the recommendation is the Community Center Select Steering Committee move to a closed meeting pursuant to section 90-1-A of the Community Charter. And that's just meetings that may or may not be closed. It must be closed to the public. So I'm going to move that. And second?
David.
Yeah, David, thank you. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Okay, and with that, do we want to set up a next meeting time before we
So-
at this meeting?
I've just, we don't have any members of the public here, so what I've been doing with committees is just turning off the recordings. for
Okay.
closing.
And
Okay.
any members of the public that try and come in, you won't let them in?
I won't let them in.
Atta girl. Okay, so next meeting, do we want to, or just, do we want to leave that open? I don't think we can set a date right now. I don't see any sort of particular dates that are going to move on anything. I think it's going to be as required.